If this doesn't excite you, check your pulse, because you're not well today. This is Viper. We had it on the circuit last year, and it was the hit of every auto show in the United States. I'm not just talking about America, by the way. It made the cover of 6 European books before we showed it at the Frankfurt show. And would you believe, we get a lot of mail on this, a lot of orders, a lot of money sent in. The president of the German Ferrari Club wrote to ask about ordering his. Now, where does it stand?
Hi, I'm Steve Van Toon. Welcome to the first of 3 special CDN telecasts on the new Dodge Viper RT10, one of the most exciting cars to appear on the world automotive scene in years. Believe me, I know. As an editor at MotorTrend magazine, I've had the privilege of driving one. In the 3 telecasts that make up this mandatory sales training series, we'll review the history and evolution of this magnificent machine. We'll take a close look at the Viper itself and how to sell it to the special customers it attracts. As you'll see, Viper is not a car for everyone, and not just because of its price tag. It's a no-frills roadster designed for the man or woman who enjoys performance and serious driving. Viper has been making news ever since it first debuted at the North American International Auto Show in January 1989. In fact, Viper has dominated the attention of the automotive press like few cars in recent history. Every major American automotive magazine has featured it as a cover story, some more than once. They've all kept their readers updated on Viper's progress. And if the letters are any indication, car buffs are ready to take this car into their hearts as an instant classic. Viper is produced at the New Mack Avenue assembly plant in Detroit. Teams of craftspersons, hand-picked and some of the most skilled workers in the entire corporation, assemble Vipers in complete components. Each craftsperson has had over 300 hours of training, and many of them could build this car single-handed if they had to. They're enthusiastic about building this car, and they're determined to do it right. One unique aspect of the Viper assembly process is that the craftspeople work with the vehicle engineers to improve Viper's quality.
Talk about him doing this and this, right?
Right.
Yeah, both of them.
Both sides or just one?
Both sides.
We get a chance to talk with the engineers personally about any changes we like to make. And they can give us the go-ahead right away over the phone, and then the paperwork comes later, but we get a chance to do whatever we want, whatever is best for the car. Can you lift the transmission so you can lift it up over the...
Just about got it.
We are allowed a freedom to work hand in hand with engineering to do things properly. We have the parameters that we dictate the process that the car is built, and through that we get a much higher level of quality. It allows us to do things that you don't do in a normal assembly operation.
Quality inspections take place even before the vehicle is completed. Before the body panels are attached, every single Viper is roll tested at speeds up to 95 miles per hour. To help ensure a quality build, production has begun at the rate of only 1 vehicle every 3 days. Over time, that rate will slowly increase as demand warrants. Viper is an incredible driving machine, but it's also much more. Here to talk about what Viper means to Dodge is the General Manager of the Dodge Car and Truck Divisions, Marty Levine.
Well, thanks, Van. The new Dodge Viper is an exciting sports car in the classic sense, but it's also much more. 3 years have passed since the Viper concept car made its debut. Those 3 years may have seemed like an eternity to sports car buffs, but to the automotive industry, it's nothing short of amazing. No other car in recent memory has been developed so quickly and so successfully. And that makes Viper the first demonstration of what can result from Chrysler's platform team concept. The hurdles that must be cleared when creating a vehicle today are incredible. It's not enough to merely design a good product. We must be able to manufacture that product with consistent, fantastic quality. And of course, There are more federal and state government regulations to meet every year regarding pollution, safety, and fuel economy. Platform teams bring together all aspects of this business, from design to engineering to manufacturing to marketing and sales. They literally provide a team approach to problem solving. Problems surface earlier and can be solved easily, shrinking the amount of development time required. Platform teams handle the entire development process. There's no handing off responsibility to someone else once your work is done. Everyone is involved in the entire development process from start to finish. And that creates an emotional involvement with the vehicle, a desire to see it succeed. And that translates into better results. As I said, Viper is the first example of the platform team approach. You'll see the next example this fall with the Dodge Intrepid. Viper has given a Dodge a chance to flex its design and engineering muscles and prove that it can still build one of the most exciting cars available. Viper also serves as Dodge's flagship vehicle, enhancing our image as the performance division of Chrysler. Viper is drawing significant amounts of attention from the media and the public, attention that will be increasing the buyer consideration for our other products. It's time now to meet some of the creators of the Viper, men with the foresight, guts, and determination to build a car that many people said had no right to exist. But they knew what a car like the Viper could do for Dodge and the Chrysler Corporation, and what it would take to pull it off. Bob Lutz, the president of Chrysler, a former Marine fighter pilot and a European rally driver with a reputation for being one of Detroit's most passionate car guys. Tom Gale, the vice president of product design and manager of minivan operations, leads a design studio that has recently gained recognition for creating some of the most forward-thinking designs in the industry worldwide. Francois Castaing is the vice president of vehicle engineering. Earlier in his career, he was in charge of the team that successfully introduced turbocharged engines into Formula One racing. Carroll Shelby is a living legend. He has raced and won at Le Mans and created the legendary Shelby Cobra in the 60s. He has been serving as a Dodge performance consultant for almost a decade. And Roy Schoberg is the executive engineer of Team Viper. Much of his career has been spent developing and building sports cars, making him the ideal person to bring together the expertise which made Viper a reality. Of course, there are many more people whose efforts have played significant roles, including Tom Stallkamp, a vice president of procurement and supplier operations, and vice president of manufacturing, Dennis Pauly, just to name a few. Now we'll let these people and others, the creators of the Viper, tell you about its development in their own words.
It was a discussion initially that I guess very, very early on, Carroll Shelby, Francois Castaing and I, and one of us had the thought of, well, we're going to have all these great rear-wheel drive components for the new T300 pickup truck. We're going to have a cast iron V10 engine. We're going to have a new 5-speed manual gearbox. We're going to have very heavy front and rear axles for trucks. And the thought was, why not combine all of that into a very exciting looking show car for the Detroit Auto Show?
Something that was simple, something with push rods, something with that you sat up straight in it. You didn't lie down like you do in these 200-mile-an-hour European type supercars, they call them. And we kind of laid out the perimeters right there, and he said, okay, let's talk to Tom Gale about it.
The discussion talked about Cobra, talked about doing a car that essentially had a lot of those qualities, but was a very contemporary statement, and so I really didn't say too much. I just walked away, and I'm not even sure, there wasn't any direct assignment. I'm not even sure what Mr. Lutz was expecting, other than just a lot of enthusiasm and certainly a champion for what we were about to do. And so we went away, and a few weeks later in one of our studio walkthroughs, I reviewed some sketches and a full-size tape drawing or a full-size drawing.
Even the early sketches in the first clay model were remarkably similar to the ultimate car. I mean, almost nothing changed. And I must say that when I first saw the sketches and the initial work on the clay model, I was initially not that enthused because somehow in my mind I had visualized something that was much closer to the original Shelby Cobra, or much more literal modernization of the Cobra. I hadn't been expecting something that was as radically different.
Took the old Cobra that I'd built back in the 60s, and that was kind of our guiding light, but we knew that we would have to meet a mission, safety, all the things that have come along since the 60s that we didn't have then.
We were after a contemporary expression, but when you look back, you would reminisce or you would remember those image qualities and those visual characters that would call up Cobra, would call up certain things like that. And what was particularly gratifying for me was when we were out at the Long Lead just last November with all the press, and we happened to be on the street with the Viper, and someone walked by, and this was a bystander who came by and said, gee, it looks like a Cobra. And yet when you get the two vehicles together, there's really nothing that's the same. They're very different.
I'll tell you, the first time I saw the body of the show car being painted out at Metal Crafters in Newport Beach in California, I mean, that blew me away.
We came to the marketplace within 3 years with it, which is 2 years quicker than concepts are usually brought to the marketplace.
I think the biggest challenge was our only real management directive was maintain the image of the vehicle, the appearance of the car. Don't change it. As it turned out, the two look identical. The two cars, from the concept car to the production car, look identical, but there isn't a square inch on the vehicle that hasn't changed because of the regulatory issues, the packaging issues, and the things that we had to do to make a commercial Viper.
Says, let's put the V10 in it. That'll be a good place to try it out and work the bugs out of it, build a high-performance version out of it, and then people that buy the pickup truck can say, oh, we have a Viper engine in our pickup truck.
Our first mule, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, was a white mule, and we didn't have a V10 yet, so it was a V8, and the purpose of that was just to find out, are our handling parameters appropriate for the vehicle? And that told us that.
The first V8-powered mule for Viper development was completed in December 1989, only 6 months after work was begun. Ken Nowak recalls the night they celebrated and when Bob Lutz came to inspect it.
And he was walking around the car puffing a cigar like he just had a brand new baby boy. I think that his comment was something like, geez, I had no idea you guys were this far along. Of course, he had to drive the car immediately. And it was now about 7:30. Most of Highland Park was empty, pretty dark. It's December 29th. And we were pretty worried about that because the drive shaft on this particular car had been machined just a little bit too short. And we knew the car was safe to drive to the show and present to everyone and rev up the engine and that sort of thing. But the new part was being machined and would be installed the next day. We asked Bob to take it easy. And we discovered that Bob Lutz doesn't take it easy. We just crossed our fingers that everything came out fine. He loved the car. Nothing failed. But it was pretty tense while he took it around the back lot.
We had the car ready for Mr. Iacocca, but it was cool and a little drizzly. And he came down, and I was sort of ready to give him a product description, and he didn't want that at all. He wanted to drive the car. That's all he wanted to do. And the first time he hit it, he just said, wow. Second time he hit it, we went through a radar trap at Highland Park, and I was starting to get my driver's license out and ready to make an explanation But I judged by the quizzical look on the officer, he knew that that individual with a cigar was someone different, and he knew the car was someone different. So we took a short spin around the area so he got a feel for the car and the handling and the performance. And it only lasted 10 or 15 minutes, but then he made the decision and looked at me and he said, well, what's the program? And I said, well, the feasibility of the 2 mules, and in June we'll make a decision. And he said, build it now.
The real challenge of the team was to design the car and the engine and the transmission, all of that within 3 years, or even less than 3 years as a matter of fact, because it took us some time before we got the team going, and only by the end of the spring of 1989 we decided to go ahead with a new version of the V10 for the car. And it is intuitively, you understand that it's difficult to test a car without a powertrain. So the guy designing the chassis and the body were waiting for the engine to be born.
Launching off of the Iron V10 from the truck people from Jeep Truck, we developed an Iron V10, the first one to go into our second mule that we called VMO2. And to find out, okay, now with that power, how does the car handle? Because you automatically now have 4-wheel steer, 2 from the steering wheel and the rear 2 from your foot on the accelerator.
And at this particular point, I don't know if you know that, but we went to Lamborghini to speed up the process and to get the conversion of our truck engine going from cast iron material to aluminum material. We were not necessarily able within the team to do that quickly enough to support the idea of going all the way with the V10. So through our contact with our friends at Lamborghini, we accessed some of their design technique and also some of their prototype suppliers.
But our suppliers have been key because the product is a platform to innovate with, and therefore the suppliers had to be on the ground floor.
Let's put them all together. Let's start with Tom Gale. Let's start with design, product planning, sales and marketing, engineering, purchasing, manufacturing. Let's put them all in the same room and let them fight it out face to face rather than scatter them around over 500 square miles of Detroit.
Snake Pit concept really started with what's called Skunk Works. That's a Kelly Johnson of Lockheed who started it. It's an idea much like a skunk. You're not necessarily pretty, you don't necessarily smell good, but you sure as hell are effective.
When the team first moved into the big office area we have, which we call the Snake Pit, everybody's desk was facing the walls. And our executive engineer looked around one day and said, wait a minute, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And everybody still was trying to state it themselves. And now our desks face one another and we're all together and it really helps you work together.
That's the intent of the Snake Pit, is just small team, strong focus, dedicated resources, and you pull the product off in very short lead times.
Most people know that Viper served as the pace car in Indianapolis 500 in 1991, with Carroll Shelby behind the wheel. But they don't know what Team Viper went through to make that happen.
Bob Lutz called me one day and when I thought I'd be dead at that time of my life and says, how about driving the Viper as the pace car at Indianapolis? And I nearly fell over. I couldn't believe that here I was. I didn't think they'd let me in the first place. I knew physically I was able to.
Well, when we got the assignment to do the Indy pace car, we sort of took it on with mixed emotions. First, it came along at a time that we were very busy doing our program vehicles. But after thinking about it, we thought it was just been a great challenge for us. And everyone just sort of jumped in and says, we can do it, and let's do it. And we want to see our car going around the test track at Indy anyway.
The Indy challenge really was show me, don't talk about it. And so we were in a prototype stage and we were evolving the prototype. But the company said, we need the Viper for the Indy Pace car at probably 2.5 months before the actual race event. And we had no vehicle dedicated for that. We had prototypes working. And so what we had to do in a very quick time was focus our efforts on building 2 more vehicles that would be, one the Indy Pace car, one a potential backup if it were needed, though that wasn't built until about a week before the actual race.
We had a month of testing down there, and I got to take everybody riding in it. And then I've done a lot of the test work since then, not so much the official test work, but I'd go over to Arizona to the proving ground and drive it. When I'd be back at Chelsea, I would go out and drive it. I don't want to say that I had a lot of input in it, but I had a lot of opinions that I passed on about the car.
The focus was building that one car, getting all the resolutions in there, all the known problems with their fixes, and making sure it would run for an extended period of time at a high speed. And our real purpose there, our mission was a vehicle that didn't have to have any aside preparation. It was street ready, and yet it went right on the track and ran.
If you saw the car going around leading the pace for the pace vehicle, it did extremely well. I think Carroll Shelby probably had it up to 140 miles an hour plus. There was 2 cars sent. We only used 1 car. We had originally thought that maybe the car would not be used under the yellow flag, the caution condition, but it was. So the car performed extremely well.
We had this one journalist who's kind of a blowhard, one of the big national publications that I had in the car, and he was acting so nonchalant and like there was really nothing to it. And I noticed when I stopped the car, he had ripped the handle, the door handle. He just ripped it right out of the. He'd been gripping so tight that he ripped it right out of the side of the door.
One of the interesting things about the Indy car that a lot of people don't know, the car was built here by craft people. They even signed their initials on the frame of the car prior to the assembly of it. Now, you won't be able to see it, but their initials are there. And that was their way of just saying, we took pride in building this vehicle.
The square area of the Viper, the square area of
Team Viper not only produced an incredible car, it also served as a learning experience for the team members and the entire corporation.
Once you can get the concept of continuous improvement established in the company to where everybody recognizes there is no status quo, there is no all-time right way of doing it, but that every time you perform that same task, you've got to try to get fewer defects and lower costs than the time you did it before. Once you get that in there, the culture, that's the essential cultural change you've got to bring about, is getting rid of the fear of change and getting people comfortable and supportive of change. Change as being not a threatening thing, but a very positive thing that's going to make us competitive in the future against the world's best.
It's been an extremely good experience, and I think if anything can be talked about that this team really has shown is how well a team can work to get something like this out in a very short period of time.
Bringing together all of the disciplines in one room, or bringing together all of the disciplines at least in one area where you can resolve problems hands-on, face-to-face communication. When you're working on front suspension and you've got a steering problem, or you've got a brake problem, or you've got something where there's an interrelationship with what's happening with the body or what's happening with other components in the vehicle, they get resolved very quickly, as opposed to having to wait for a meeting to resolve, or wait for memos going back and forth. I mean, it just cuts all of that out.
Engineers generally work on components and don't have the opportunity to have a total overview of a whole compartment. Say, for example, a whole interior. And by being in a team this small, I not only started out with responsibility for overview of the whole interior, but gradually I came to be aware of the whole car.
Chrysler employees are resilient people, flexible people, and damn dedicated people. And the team and the amount of personal time that these people have put in the project has been really exciting.
The Viper project was my first exposure to the entire vehicle. I was able to put my 2 cents in, whether it made a difference or not, people would listen, but I was able to put my 2 cents in concerning the clay models. I was able to talk with marketing people. I actually went on the long lead press previews with the public relations people.
I say it's enhanced. It's just been a prove out of what we already knew. We knew that if you empower people, if you gave them the ability to get involved early, if you brought them on stream, if you communicated with them, that they took ownership, they took more pride in what they're doing. So I think what we're doing, we're the forerunner for maybe changing the culture inside of Chrysler.
I think the way Team Viper's been organized is hopefully how we're going to see the rest of the industry going.
To sum it all up, we asked the creators to describe Viper in 3 words or less.
Sex on wheels.
Route and fun, force.
Gut-wrenching experience.
I say it's beautiful, fast. What could be the other one? Exciting.
Hot, raw, voluptuous.
Exciting, big, and powerful.
Awesome performance and imagery.
Slick, stylish, powerful.
A love affair.
In the past, when Dodge introduced a new model, there has always been some discussion of the competition. Until now. Viper occupies a unique position in today's marketplace. Quite simply, while there are other sports cars in the same price range, there is no other car in the market like the Viper at any price. Blinding speed, blistering acceleration, and superb handling are the common denominators for many sports cars. What positions Viper uniquely is the emotional jolt that engulfs the driving experience. What kind of Viper prospect should you expect to see? Well, while Viper will appeal to almost everyone, it will be a must-have for its buyers. These buyers are automotive enthusiasts, the people who have been following the Viper ever since it first appeared 3 years ago. These are prospects who will know as much about this car as anyone. They appreciate Viper as the ultimate example of what's been missing from the new car market. Van?
Thanks, Marty. And our thanks to the Viper's creators for taking the time to tell us about its origin and development. Now for a word about our upcoming telecasts. In Part 2, we'll take a closer look at the Viper itself, what makes it special, and what makes it one of the most exciting cars ever produced. In Telecast 3, we'll talk about what it means to sell the Viper, some of the challenges you'll face, how to take care of Viper customers, and how to keep them customers of your dealership. As a salesperson, you must understand both the Viper and the customers it attracts. So be sure to watch the next 2 telecasts on what's being called America's ultimate muscle car. Some call it classic and legendary, some call it unconventional, still others say it's a wonderful excess of high-performance exhilaration. But one thing is for certain, behind the wheel of the Dodge Viper RT10, you are left utterly speechless. Welcome to the Viper Experience. I'm your host, Steve Van Toon. As an editor for MotorTrend magazine, I get to drive a lot of different cars, and the Viper is truly one of the most exciting. It's no ordinary car, and its buyers are not your typical customers. As a representative of Team Viper, you, the salesperson, must fully understand the Viper in order to meet customers' needs. This is the second show of a three-part series that takes an in-depth look at the astonishing Dodge Viper RT10. During the next half hour, we will hear from fellow members of Team Viper as they explain what makes this car so exhilarating. In our first telecast, The Viper Story, we explored its creation. From the crowd-pleasing concept car that took center stage at the 1989 North American Auto Show in Detroit, through its unique design and engineering process that turned fantasy into reality in just 3 years, to actual production at a facility where the Viper RT10 is built more like a race car rather than a typical mass-produced vehicle. The Viper is the result of a vision shared by a team of sport enthusiasts, though automotive fanatics would be a better term. Their goal was to create a back-to-basics, high-performance sports car with the classic form and function equal to legends such as the Cobra. The result is a contemporary classic. Its flowing lines and muscular bulges recall an era of limited production open-air roadsters, but in the context of modern aesthetics. The Viper is about passion. Its owners desire a car that not only satisfies their passion for driving, but also displays that passion with unabashed freedom. Viper's lines are anything but conservative. The composite body panels are molded into expressive curves which do more than simply hide the machinery. They are an outward indication of the power inside. Comparisons to the Shelby Cobra of the 1960s are inevitable but understandable. In fact, the Viper project began with the question, what if we produced a Cobra-like vehicle today? Public response to the initial show car was so overwhelmingly positive that Team Viper was formed to explore the feasibility of such a vehicle and eventually build it, all in just 3 years. They succeeded at levels few thought possible and, in the process, captured the hearts of car lovers everywhere. So let's find out just what makes the Viper so unique from the very people who created it. Joining us is the Viper Team Program Manager, Jim Sayin. As an initial member of Team Viper, you've witnessed the evolution of this incredible car. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you, Van. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Team Viper. As you've mentioned, the idea behind Viper was to capture the spirit of the Cobra, honor the appearance of the original Viper concept car that we all fell in love with, and to bring all this into the 90s and honor the safety and regulatory requirements we have to live with today. To do this, it required extreme focus on what we were trying to do, using 90s technology to the extent we can, and of course to do this all in 3 years was a formidable task. There's nothing like a Cobra in today's market, and we believe there's nothing like a Viper.
Shelby Cobra was a car designed and built by Carroll Shelby in the 60s, and it was a very light car with a very large motor. The car was an exceptionally good performing car for its time, although by our standards it was crude and didn't handle or brake as well as we thought we could do today. With the Viper, we were able to take the Shelby Cobra's performance, its raw performance, and refine it quite a bit.
If you had to compare it to the majority of the cars in production now, it's a very different animal because it doesn't meet all the comfort and convenience criteria that a normal car that's both used as a sports car and as a commuter vehicle. They just aren't the same.
I've driven Dodge race cars for 7 years now. It's been all road racing, and road racing has the same type of performance that we were trying to achieve with the Viper. It's all handling, a lot of braking, and acceleration is also important, but over a wide range of speeds. And these were a lot of the things we tried to capture in the Viper.
So basically then, building the Viper was just a matter of fleshing out the Viper show car with the performance of a more refined and well-rounded Shelby Cobra?
Well, it's not that easy, Van. Going from concept to reality is no simple task. The production Viper looks like the original concept car, but they're really very different. Maintaining the appearance of the concept car with the 90s regulatory requirements we've alluded to, along with the extreme performance levels we were looking for, and doing it all in 3 years was a real challenge.
We already knew what the body had to look like. That was what the show car was. What the show car did not have was a viable suspension drivetrain system. So we knew that we had to design or engineer a frame, a complete suspension and steering system, and a powertrain.
Through the use of pre-prototype mule development cars, we were able to quickly establish, and the operative word here is quickly, the basic design, architecture, and packaging of the Viper. They were also drivable vehicles, so we were able to evaluate real handling characteristics.
Well, it's obvious the Viper puts a lot of rubber on the road. These 17-inch tires and wheels are some of the widest used on any performance car.
Yeah, that's right, Van. Cobra was limited to the tire technology of the 60s. They're about half as wide as the tires we're using on the Viper. Today's high-performance tires are wider with a lower profile for better traction. The real challenge is to take full advantage of today's significantly advanced tire technology.
Well, the tires, the contact patch between the tire and the road, if you can't control that, you don't have a car. You don't have anything. Okay, so to me, it's the most important thing to start with the tires. These are a lot different than Cobra tires. They're a lot bigger. As a matter of fact, our rear tire, it's a 335/35/17. The only other vehicle that's on is a Lamborghini Diablo. So we have the widest rear tires around. Front tires are almost as wide, 275/40s. The compound and tread pattern is totally unique to Viper, developed by Michelin for the Viper.
The tires are the building block for they're the basic starting point for the handling of the car. And you select those for what type of car you have.
We spend a lot of time picking the right tire because it's very important that the tire perform and behave the way that we want it to get the right characteristics.
Well, the main thing that the tires do on the Viper is provide extreme amounts of traction. The grip to the road under braking and acceleration, and also during cornering. With the performance suspension that allows these tires to develop their maximum, we can pull over 1G on a steady state circle.
The Viper corners as well or better than any street car you can currently get. And that was one of our goals, and it was tough to achieve, but we did a lot of testing to try to get to those goals. And even though the car handles very well, we didn't completely sacrifice the ride of the car.
We've designed our tire to get the maximum performance while still providing a pretty decent ride for a vehicle of this nature. It's very important in the handling, in the cornering, in the G-force you pull. The tires are going to be able to grip the road. You've got to look out for wet handling if the customer gets caught in the rain. We've maximized this tire in wet handling without giving up any performance.
Viper's large tires are not only key to providing excellent handling, they also provide the balance necessary to transmit the enormous torque and horsepower output of the Viper's engine to the road.
Well, that's absolutely true, and during my road testing of the Viper, I found that the tires grip excellently, both in wet and dry situations. However, putting such large tires on a vehicle does create special design considerations.
Yeah, that's correct, Van. Viper's massive tires require careful tire patch management to pavement, management to take the full advantage of their size. The large contact area makes the suspension components and their geometry and alignment a very important consideration. Team Viper has been very careful to address these concerns. We wanted a fully rounded, high-performance sports car.
There's a real challenge as far as the suspension is concerned to be able to make these tires work properly under all conditions. Mainly what this consists of is trying to keep the tire square to the road. If the tire's running on its corners, you might as well have a bicycle tire.
This tire has a very large contact patch, and controlling this, our suspension design team, they've had a real fun time designing our suspension to accommodate these big tires, because this was a given for the Viper team.
The suspension geometry on the Viper we characterize as being a performance geometry. It's specifically designed to take advantage of the high-performance tires that are on the Viper.
You know, it's very important that the suspension be set just right to get the maximum characteristics, out of the vehicle. Engineering, we have designed a lot of understeering characteristics and all sorts of things into this vehicle so that it's very easy for the customer who's driving it, who wants to push a little on the exit ramp or the off ramp, they can bring themselves back under control.
The result is a very responsive car with superb driver feedback. You always know exactly what the Viper is doing, and it does exactly what you want it to do. Viper is surprisingly easy to drive.
Well, I'd say the brakes are equally impressive. Viper can stop as well as it accelerates and takes the turns.
Yeah, that's right, Van. The brakes helped us to meet one of Viper's performance target, that being going from 0 to 100 miles an hour and back to 0 again in under 15 seconds.
This goal was based on the original Shelby Cobra cars of the 60s, which had this ability to do this very quickly. And one of the reasons we can do it in less than 15 seconds is that the car accelerates from 0 to 100 very quickly in about 10 seconds. And then due to the brakes we've got on the car, we're able to stop in about 4.5 seconds.
Our going in philosophy was to put the biggest rotors that we could fit into the wheels on the car, and we have. They're massive rotors. They're 13 inches in diameter, which is bigger than the wheels on some cars.
We designed the braking system for maximum stopping power, and we use very large brakes, much larger than you would normally use on a car if you were designing it to be cost-effective and meet all of the minimum corporate and federal requirements. On the Viper, we went way overboard, and I think it's paid off for us because anyone who drives a Viper is going to appreciate the ability it has for stopping quickly.
Team Viper has certainly left nothing to chance. Every component has been designed to push the limits of performance.
Yeah, that's right, Van. The components must work together as one unit. There can be no weak link. Even the wheels demonstrate this.
The wheels are a unique wheel. They're called FFM, or full face module, which is a cast aluminum face and a spun aluminum rim, and they're welded together. And this is done for weight savings. For the size of the wheel we have, the weight, and the less weight you have in unsprung weight, the better performance, the better handling the car is going to have. So the wheels are unique in that fashion.
But all these features rely on a frame that will allow them to operate at their full potential.
Well, you know, a true performance car is only as good as its frame allows it to be, and the backbone of Viper's race-bred chassis is one of the stiffest sports car frames ever built.
Now that's true, Van. Keeping in mind the tire patch management we talked about earlier, the very sophisticated suspension Viper has is attached to the frame. The suspension can't properly manage the tires if the frame is moving.
Viper frame is a very stiff platform from which the suspension can do its job. If it were not for a stiff platform, you'd be, with this race-tuned suspension that we have, you can encounter a situation where the suspension may be able to overpower or outmuscle the frame, where the frame becomes more compliant than the suspension. For this suspension and its critical geometry to do its job, it needs a stable platform. And we've provided the Viper with a stable platform.
Cobra did not have a very stiff frame. Its torsional stiffness was very low, and the Viper has a very stiff frame, which allows us to tune the balance and the handling of the suspension much better than the Cobra ever could. And of course, the Cobra was saddled with tires of the time.
Our vehicle, with the much higher cornering potential of the large tires, requires that it has a much higher torsional stiffness for the suspension, to give the suspension a stable platform to do its job. The Cobra had a torsional stiffness of around 1,700 foot-pounds per degree, and we're more than 3 times that.
Viper deals with performance extremes. The frame must be able to handle those conditions.
Yeah, such as the 450 foot-pounds of torque Viper's V10 engine can produce.
Taming the V10 beast, yes. In addressing the monstrous torque that the car has, it was a challenge in that, running contrary to most contemporary supercars, where the drivetrain and the driving wheels is all collected as one piece, usually mid-engine, our vehicle has a very powerful engine at one end of the car and the driving wheels at the other end of the car. So you're relying on the chassis, the frame, to transmit that torque. The drivetrain essentially wants to twist the frame up. That's another reason why we need a very torsionally stiff frame, so that we don't get the drivetrain under acceleration, turning the frame over like a pretzel.
Viper's frame is designed with a center spine construction. It gets its strength down the center as opposed to around the perimeter. In addition, the spine is a closed box construction, which very few vehicles have. Here's where some of our 90s technology comes in. We use 3 different materials in the spine construction. The rails and sides are made of mild steel. The top is made of lightweight, high-strength carbon fiber. And the bottom is a T6 alloy aluminum plate, which you're familiar with from the aircraft industry.
Well, this is essentially the same type of frame design used in Formula One race cars. But beyond stiffness, the frame must also allow for equal weight distribution among the 4 corners of the vehicle. How's the Viper's weight distribution, Jim?
Well, it's excellent. Our production units are right at 50-50, which was our going-in goal. It was accomplished by, first of all, locating the engine aft of the center line of the front wheels, and by doing things like locating the battery in the trunk. This all leads to the all-important balance between the chassis and the engine. When we put it all together, tires, suspension, the rigid frame, and the weight distribution we've been talking about, the engine then can be used to its full potential. You know, Van, if the frame is the Viper's backbone, certainly then the engine is its heart.
Well, much of the excitement generated by Viper is focused on its V10 engine. 8 liters of displacement, 488 cubic inches, 450 foot-pounds of torque, 0 to 60 in just 4.5 seconds. That's impressive numbers, especially for a production vehicle.
But the real story, Van, goes beyond the numbers. It happens behind the wheel. There's nothing like the feel of a large displacement engine. The driver will experience instantaneous response.
Because of the large displacement engine and because of the torque that's attributed to the large displacement, the throttle response is virtually instantaneous. He can put his foot down, and depending on what gear he is in, the car will either move fast or very fast. There's nothing in between. Even if you're cruising along the freeway at posted speeds and you want to accelerate, you do not have to downshift. You can just put your foot into the throttle and you'll just move away from traffic.
When you accelerate in the Viper, basically anytime you stand on the gas pedal, the car just charges forward, and you get an impression of being shoved from behind by a very large force. And it really doesn't matter what gear you're in or what speed you're going. The car will accelerate up to well over 100 miles an hour up toward its top speed with the same type of effort that it accelerates at slow speeds. And this is different than most cars. Most cars, as you get up into the high speeds, the acceleration tapers off and it takes a long time to build speed.
The car is very forgiving. My experience with it has been that you can ask the car to do whatever you want and it'll do it. And if you keep your head where it's located, then you won't have any problems with it. It is indeed a very drivable car. The torque curve is very flat from about 1,600 RPM or even 1,200 RPM up to about 3,600 RPM. It's continually rising from about 400 foot-pounds to about 450 foot-pounds.
Viper's all-aluminum V10 is well matched to the central theme of the car, back to basics, tried and true. It is an excellent blend of the best of the past with 90s technology added to accommodate the emission and fuel economy requirements of today.
That's right, Van. Large displacement for outstanding torque. Like the big V8s of the 60s, there's nothing like good old-fashioned cubic inches.
Viper's seemingly endless torque is put to the pavement through an all-new 6-speed transmission. It has been specifically designed to match the performance characteristics of the V10 engine.
When you've got 450 foot-pounds of torque coming out of the engine and hitting the road via 13-inch wide tires, that's a lot of rubber to move. So consequently, you've got to have a pretty bulletproof driveline. You know, what we've done is basically design the weak links right out of it. You know, you fix up one thing, you know, something else breaks, you just sort of chase that weak link right through the system until it's not there anymore. The drivetrain has a brand new 6-speed Borg-Warner gearbox. We have an aluminum prop shaft, a Dana 307 rear axle, and Dana half shafts. So you'll take off from the intersection, all of a sudden you'll be in 4th gear, you hit the gas, you're still going to move, you're not going to be putting along and your engine's not going to be stalling out. So it's a nice feature in that way. Because of the torque, you don't notice it. It's not too annoying when you go from 1 to 4 and you're not prepared. So.
Well, you know, the 1 to 4 skip shift is actually a computer-controlled device that locks out 2nd and 3rd gears during light throttle driving. And it's there to help fuel economy. But the Viper thrives when pushed beyond the norm. Hit the accelerator in any gear, and a surge of power sends the speedometer upward. If you want to really turn the scenery into a blur of color, just downshift, open the throttle, and devour the road.
Yeah, a true driver's car requires that you establish a unity between the driver and the machine. Viper's transmission was specifically developed to handle a V10's high torque output and makes for a flawless connection between the driver and the machine. And I'm sure we had several engineers on the team that thought it was a crime to cover up the good stuff with a body, but then we had to keep the rain off.
Even so, just standing still, the Viper looks ready and willing. Viper's body panels are a type of fiberglass, aren't they, Jim?
Though fiberglass is used, Van, it's actually a composite material of fiberglass and acrylic resin. Viper is the first American car to utilize a process called resin transfer molding, or RTM, on all the major exterior body panels. Because RTM utilizes continuous strand preformed fiberglass, Viper body panels are more uniform and therefore stronger than conventional fiberglass car bodies. It also has resulted, as you can see, in a Class A finish.
Well, the benefits mostly are it's about 40% lighter than steel, and about 10 to 15% lighter than some of the other materials that are available, like the SMC sheet molding compound type of materials, which is used for the exterior body also on some of the competitive cars. Of course, we have developed a unique paint system for this, which is a low-bake urethane paint system that has excellent acid-resistant properties, excellent durability properties.
It's only appropriate that a vehicle with such incredible performance characteristics should have an equally aggressive attitude. The teardrop headlights, large fog lamps, and voracious air intake create a look that lives up to the Viper name, coiled and ready to strike.
Yeah, being so expressive, the shape itself presented design difficulties.
Because of the fenders are molded into the hood, it's a very unique design, and our styling people want to keep that look. So we had to go through a development of molding this large hood in one piece, and that was a challenge.
The Viper is a complete drivable vehicle, even without the body panels. In fact, it is road tested at 95 miles an hour before any panels are attached. This is called a hot running chassis. To ensure excellent body panel fit, the chassis has special locator pins to aid in panel alignment.
Well, being a sports car enthusiast, I'm equally impressed by Viper's interior. I tell you, this is a driver's car.
We tried to carry the back to basics theme into the interior, keeping in mind the primary goal of Viper being a driver's car. We were able to capture in Viper's interior a 60s feel, yet with 1990s ergonomics and safety. A lot of research went into getting it just right, but again, the overriding theme was keep it simple. One example I recall had to do with the exterior door handles. We were trying to find the right door handle to use when someone suggested why not use a Cobra door handle. Of course, a Cobra had no door handles.
Well, Jim, it's obvious that Viper's interior was designed with one goal in mind, which is integrate the driver into the car without a lot of confusing complexity.
We started out early on in the packaging process by doing an ergonomic study. We found our optimum position for the steering wheel, the shift knob, the seat, and we started out with a known age point, which is where the seat is, where your posterior sits in the seat, is called the design age point. And from that point, we developed the ergonomics of this vehicle.
When it came to the instrument panel, we use good old-fashioned analog gauges, and we feel that these are actually better type of gauge for a driver's car versus a digital gauge, and we designed the instrument panel with that in mind. We've got a large tach and a large speedometer.
The shift knob is located where it is because in the ergonomic study, most of the drivers who were sports car drivers and racers wanted to have an ease of dropping off the steering wheel to the shift knob.
Boy, just sitting in a Viper gets your blood pressure up. I tell you, this car fits. There's a lot of legroom for big, tall guys, legible analog gauges, the shifter's in the right place, steering wheel's good and adjustable. This is my kind of driving car.
Yeah, that's right, Van. Simplicity is the key to high-performance motoring. You can be prepared for the nothing less than a driving experience of your life every time you're strapped into a Viper. Of course, once our performance concerns were addressed, we did provide some extras that Viper buyers may enjoy, such as carpeting leather seats with vinyl trim, and a Chrysler Alpine 6-speaker stereo radio with cassette player.
Although the Viper is best experienced as a wind-in-your-hair top-down roadster, Mother Nature is not always so accommodating. A top and side curtains seal out the harsher elements and actually even add to Viper's classic image. The side curtains reminiscent of those used on many now legendary sports cars. However, most Viper buyers will probably prefer to use the tonneau cover, which strikes a balance between the open-air experience and protecting the interior on less than ideal days. You know, Viper's back-to-basics design in all aspects of the car is really refreshing in the midst of today's high-tech gadgetry. You really sense a union between driver and machine.
Yeah, by not including any purely indulgent features, the Viper maintains a sharp focus on its objective, exhilaration.
Jim, you've certainly spent a lot of time behind the wheel of the Viper. Tell us your driving impressions of this amazing sports car.
Well, Van, one impression I have is, you know, I ride a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, and the sound and feel I get driving a Viper reminds me a lot of the feeling I get on my Harley, albeit with 4 wheels. I've also noticed that anyone driving a Viper never wants to get out when their time is up. I think many of us have forgotten, and some of our younger people, of course, never knew just how exhilarating driving this type of a car can be. But you don't have to take my word for it. Ask some of my Viper teammates.
After you get over the initial shock of how well it accelerates, you'll find that you adapt very easily to it and that there's no special skills required to drive the car.
Well, runs like hell, that's all I got to say. And
An instantaneous response by the car to whatever you want to do. If you want to accelerate quickly, it can accelerate quickly. If you want to turn quickly, it turns quickly. If you want it to brake, it stops now.
Driving a Viper is, well, wait a minute. You're going to trap me here. I'm going to make some comparisons to sex and some other things like that. I'm not going to do that.
Totally hot. I mean, it's a feeling of raw horsepower. You know, putting the pedal to the metal and just cruising. It's unbelievable. You get a high, you get a rush. The hair on the back of your neck stands up when you drive this car.
Driving the Viper makes you feel 16 and invincible again. I don't know what else to say. It's liberating. It's a religious experience.
And the press loves it too. As an editor of MotorTrend magazine, Van, you've had a chance to drive the Viper. What do you think of it?
Well, like I said, I didn't want to get out when my turn was up, believe me. I've driven the car about 400 miles now, Jim, both on the street and on a racetrack, and I got to tell you, the performance is definitely there. To say it's fast is an understatement. To say it handles great doesn't do the car justice. It's a very easy car to drive, very predictable, and more fun than you'll ever have. Jim, it's obvious that you and the rest of Team Viper have done an excellent job in building this car. Thanks very much for coming in and sharing some of your insight.
Well, thank you, Van. It's been a pleasure being here, and I hope my being able to share the team's perspective on how the Viper evolved has been of help. Thank you.
Thank you. An important part of Viper ownership is the sense of confidence it provides, not only in the vehicle itself, but also in Chrysler Corporation and your Dodge dealership. Viper owners are not the typical Dodge customer. In fact, they're more like Porsche or Ferrari owners who expect quick personal service. Confidence is also inspired by Viper's 3-year or 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper limited warranty. And to enhance Viper warranty service, many of the main assemblies are replaced rather than repaired. Also, the Special Order Services, or SOS, gives Viper repair parts top priority, and 2 hotline numbers are available to help technicians quickly solve hard-to-find conditions. The new Dodge Viper RT10 represents a way of doing business in which the customer comes before all other concerns. In the next telecast, Selling the Viper, you will learn what it means to be a Viper dealer and salesperson. Viper prospects require special treatment, and since there will not usually be floor models or demos available, you must be able to generate and maintain Viper excitement by relying on your personal skills. These talents can be applied not only to Viper prospects, but to any customer you may encounter. So join us in the final telecast in this 3-part series on the Dodge Viper and witness the future of Chrysler Corporation today.
I think the Viper is going to do the same thing that the Cobra did in the 60s. It's going to increase your showroom traffic. It's going to bring young people into your showroom. It's going to bring a different class of people into your showroom than you've been getting. We haven't had a car like this in the Chrysler lineup. I think that you will find that you will sell cars off of this. What you make off the Viper has very little to do with what you're going to take home at the end of the month. But I think it's going to increase the traffic in your dealership. I think that it's going to be something that you're going to see it bringing a whole new class of customers into the Dodge dealerships than they've gotten before.
Hi, I'm Steve Van Toon. Welcome to the final telecast in a three-part series on the vehicle that has the automotive world talking, the Dodge Viper RT10. The Viper certainly ranks among the most thrilling cars available. In the second telecast, the Viper Experience, we found out just what makes it so exhilarating. Viper is a back-to-basics high-performance sports car of legendary proportions, the power of a V10 engine, the feel of a responsive race-bred chassis, the classic look of a limited production open-air roadster, the flawless integration of driver and machine. Make no mistake, Viper is for the true sport enthusiast. In this telecast, Selling the Viper, we'll learn just what it takes to be a Viper salesperson. You know, the Viper represents an entirely new way of doing business and a new Chrysler Corporation. The corporate ads have been putting this message across to the public for several months now.
We want to show you what an American car company can do when we put our minds to it. In 1989, this Dodge Viper was just a concept. In January, it'll be rolling off an assembly line in Detroit, Michigan. Nobody in the country ever developed a car that fast. From now on, every new car Chrysler makes is going to be built the way this one was. And that's by a team. Product and manufacturing engineers, designers, finance guys, and marketers, all working together with one idea, making a great car. And this is where they'll do it, our new billion-dollar Chrysler Technology Center. We'll have 7,000 people here, designing, testing, hand-building prototypes. There's even a pilot factory to get it right before we produce a single car. We've been telling you about Chrysler advantages for some time now. We've changed this company to give you even higher quality cars, faster, and at lower cost. For those of us who forgot, it's called being competitive.
In developing the Viper, Dodge and the corporation saw it as much more than just an opportunity to produce the ultimate performance car. The Viper program is serving as an ongoing test bed of new technologies and, more importantly, a new cultural approach to automotive development. This was due in large part to the accelerated timetable that the Viper team had to meet. The target was to take the concept car that stunned the public at the 1989 North American Auto Show in Detroit and develop a production model in just 3 years.
The 1992 Dodge Viper.
Well, it was overwhelming. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was the hit of the show. It was all anybody wanted to talk about. And we thought it would just be, you know, an interesting display exhibit. But instead, it just seemed to crystallize or act as a catalyst for incredible reactions at the show, both among the press and the public and our own people. And it triggered such an avalanche of letters of people wanting to buy the car that we felt we had to give it serious consideration.
You know, just the automotive press, the buff press was really very, very enthusiastic about the vehicle. But I think the thing that was kind of the final straw were the letters coming in with people, and we started to notice the demographics and people trying to send money. They wanted one, and so that's hard to ignore. So we decided that maybe we ought to take a look at it.
It is very rare in our industry that you go out, show a product, and if people like it, you start designing it. We always invent and design and engineer cars and trucks, and then a few weeks before volume production, we go out and say, here, voila, we're going to do that for you. This is a unique process we went through where we created a concept, went out, presented it to the public, because these customers told us that the Viper was exactly what they wanted, we decided to satisfy them.
Viper's development process was purely customer-driven. After the original Viper concept car exposed a widespread hunger for a basic high-performance sports car, Chrysler Corporation pledged itself to meet this demand. But to accomplish this, they had to rewrite their automotive philosophy. The Viper was developed using a team approach, which concentrates design, engineering, and production efforts within a single vehicle platform. Working closely together, Team Viper members exercised a high degree of control over the complete development process and thereby kept it focused on the final result, gratify the sports car devotee.
The training we will give to our people in doing such a new vehicle, also believing that through the design of this car we will learn new processes and new technologies, and therefore even if the car was never to be born, since at the beginning we were not sure that the car will exist, having 50 people work on it was not a waste of money. It was learning and building for the future. And then pretty quickly, this small team of volunteer people grew in confidence and in design prototypes, and they came back to us and say, maybe we should do the car. And then once we realized that we knew of a way to do the car, we went back to Lee Iacocca and senior management and say, we believe we can say yes to all the people who ask us to build the car.
The number one challenge was package that vehicle, maintaining the appearance, and yet make it regulatory, legal, and ergonomically sound for the customer.
Suppliers were integrated with Team Viper early in the process to ensure product integrity. There could be no weak links. The team concept was also applied to manufacturing at the New Mack Avenue Viper assembly plant. Highly skilled craftspersons are organized into small groups to assemble Viper. But because each craftsperson spends so much time with each vehicle, they develop a strong attachment and feel personally responsible. But not only for the vehicle, for the customer satisfaction as well. This customer-driven team philosophy is not limited to the Viper. It's being applied throughout Chrysler as a corporate-wide culture change. Viper is one of the first examples of this change, providing important lessons for the rest of the corporation.
I think the Viper program, which was kicked off after the LH but was finished before it, showed us just how quick and how inexpensive and how lean you can be. And that experience, which was observed by the whole corporation, that experience, the way the Viper team interfaced with vendors, the way suppliers took over a lot of the design and engineering responsibility for the parts that they delivered. All of these things were a small scale and successful experiment of the new way of doing business in Chrysler.
It comes back to being a prototype for all of the things we were doing with teamwork. Certainly it's drawn together the management. Many of us, I think, have a close working relationship anyway, but this creates new relationships. We're off together resolving issues, and everybody's got their sleeves rolled up, and there's a certain camaraderie, and of course when you need a favor or you want to get something done, it's the informal communication network that becomes so strong. That bond is there between manufacturing and design, or design and engineering, or or between those groups, and that's critical. That's critical to success, and it's not critical to just Viper. It's critical to all the products we do.
So I think what we're doing, we're the forerunner for maybe changing the culture inside of Chrysler. There's other platforms who are already following the things that we've done here and taking it to another level. But I think we can say with pride that we could be the forerunner of establishing a cultural change where craft people can do anything they want in a car.
The whole purpose of the project was to be a platform to innovate product, innovate process, innovate build techniques. And we're in the process of doing that now. We have 18 different areas of innovation that have never been done in North America or Chrysler. And we're finding that continuous improvement required design-wise, process-wise, to achieve the quality we must have for the customer.
Success in today's international marketplace can't be achieved by simply studying the balance sheet or increasing productivity. Rather, Dodge and the new Chrysler Corporation must respond to customers and provide vehicles they want and need with the quality they demand. However, there is still one more important link in the chain from concept car to customer satisfaction: you, the salesperson. As an integral member of Team Viper, you must also respond to the customer just as Dodge does. Now let's see just how to approach the challenge of presenting the Dodge Viper and your dealership to prospective clients. Here to discuss it, the General Manager of the Dodge Car and Truck Divisions, Marty Levine. Welcome, Marty.
Well, it's good to see you, Van. We haven't seen each other since the Indy 500. I got to tell you, I loved your article in MotorTrend on the Viper.
Well, thanks. Like I tell you, with a car like that, it's easy to write a good piece. Say, what kind of prospects will we be seeing for Viper?
Well, there's no simple answer to that, Van. Normally, I could tick off the ages, incomes, education levels, and so on for each of our products. But Viper crosses all demographic lines. The one common denominator all Viper prospects will share is that cars play an important role in their lives. They will also tend to have a passion for American sports cars.
The Viper buyer is probably going to be, at least based on the letters that we've gotten, he may be a medical practitioner of some sort, like an orthopedic surgeon or an orthodontist or a dentist. He may be a captain with the airlines. He may be a senior military officer. He may be a successful investment banker or stockbroker. Sports athletic figures, those are probably the only 22-year-olds who can go out and write checks for one. And for the most part, I think the buyers are going to be well-educated, probably well-educated professionals, age-wise between 45 and 55. Very high disposable income, as I say, a very good educational level, and they're going to buy it as a toy for use on weekends, and just pride of ownership, you know, be able to open the garage, flick on the light, and look at it.
Another important fact is that income alone is not a qualifier. Car enthusiasts will spend a disproportionate amount of their income to satisfy their automotive desires. Viper is special. We're not just selling transportation to these people. We're offering them an exclusive experience, a visceral escape from their everyday routine, a product that will enhance their image and serve as a total complement to their existence. They don't view the purchase procedure as just buying a car. They're looking for a personal relationship with an organization that will not just take care of their needs, but actually anticipate their needs. The sales presentation should be geared towards developing a long-term relationship with these people. Now, good stockbrokers don't make one sale and then move on. They look out for their clients' long-term financial interests. We need to look out for our customers' long-term interest also.
What else can we say about Viper customers?
Well, they'll probably know a lot about cars, especially if they've been following the Viper story. And they'll expect salespeople to share their enthusiasm and be able to answer any questions they have.
But how can salespeople know everything about a car they may sell once or twice in a year and that they've never actually seen?
Well, they don't need to know everything about Viper, but they need to share the customer's enthusiasm and they must know where to find the answers almost instantaneously. So if a customer asks a specific product question, they always know where to get that answer.
Given that the Viper is a very desirable car and will be available in such limited numbers, especially at first, won't it just pretty much sell itself?
Well, true. Viper is so desirable that you won't need any high-pressure selling tactics. In fact, high-pressure selling tactics backfires just with about any of today's consumers, not just car-knowledgeable prospects. High pressure is exactly the wrong approach with these people. They don't want to feel manipulated. They want help, the chance to talk about cars, and the freedom to make their own decision. But if salespeople or dealers come off as the slightest bit cavalier or disinterested, they'll walk guaranteed. They'll go to the next Dodge dealership to place their order, or worse, they'll lose sight of the mystique they wanted to buy into. Viper is not just a car, it's a whole experience. Cars are a part of these people's lives, and salespeople need to understand and respect that.
Usually, salespeople have a car on the lot or in the showroom to demonstrate, but they're going to have to sell Viper without one on hand.
Well, you're right. Initially, they'll have to use the catalog, but that won't be an obstacle for many of these early buyers. These people know how rare the Viper is going to be. Matter of fact, that's part of the charm. As long as they're confident and comfortable with the salesperson in the dealership, and the catalog tells them what they want to know, they can appreciate not being able to drive it. Since the catalog is going to be your primary sales tool, let's take a minute to walk through it. It's laid out differently from other Dodge catalogs. It tells a story and is designed to evoke emotion in the reader. The catalog begins by describing Team Viper and the origins of this unique car. That will be important to Viper customers because, as I've said, they're not just buying a car, they're buying into an experience, even a love affair that they can share with their friends. There are 2-page spreads devoted solely to the V10 engine and its development, the chassis and its construction, and the unique assembly and testing process. 2 more spreads show and describe what it's like to drive this magnificent machine. And finally, there are 2 pages of extensive specifications. In fact, the catalog itself is actually a collector's item with thick, glossy paper, beautiful photography, and the whole Viper story.
There's only going to be about 200 Vipers built for the 1992 model year, and there are about 2,800 Dodge dealerships throughout the country. With so much demand, how is Dodge going to allocate them?
As a matter of fact, to be exact, there's only 196 Dodge dealers that are fortunate enough to receive a 1992 model Viper. Now, we're very sensitive to the concern that the stringent distribution criteria required to maintain our integrity with the myriad of state franchise laws has precipitated. So I'm very pleased to announce that all dealers can now have the opportunity to place retail orders for 1993 Vipers. The 93 code sheets are out, and the 93 model prices are protected through July 31st of this year. That's all for all sold orders. For 1993, Viper production will speed up a little, but it will still be slow compared to more mainstream vehicles. We must realize that some customers will have to wait a relatively long time after they place their retail order. And that's where the sold order program comes in.
But what exactly is the sold order program?
Well, the sold order program is a partnership between Dodge and the dealership that's designed to help make the customer's waiting period as enjoyable as possible. If we can't get the car in his or her hands as soon as possible, the next best thing is to keep them up to date on their order status. And it starts when the salesperson fills out the sold order form when taking the order. A few days after the customer's order is taken, they'll receive a thank you letter from Dodge. When their Viper is scheduled to be built, we'll notify them of the approximate build date. After the car is built and ready to be shipped, they'll receive a letter notifying them of the estimated ship date. We're also exploring the idea of inviting them to come watch the final assembly of their car being built. It's important to keep in touch with buyers after they place their order for 2 reasons. You want to keep their interest high, and you want to show that we're still thinking about them in keeping track of their order. Phone calls or personal notes are good ways to do that, especially when you have some news about their car. Or maybe you can point out a glowing review of the Viper in one of the enthusiast magazines. Let them know it's out on the newsstand, or even send them a copy yourself.
What special efforts is Dodge making regarding delivery of Vipers?
Well, first of all, understand that every Viper will be quality tested and will have up to 65 miles on the odometer. This mileage will be certified and signed by a Viper team craftsman for customer peace of mind. So don't worry that anybody went out for a joyride in their car. Finally, every Viper will arrive in a sealed truck for protection, not an open car carrier.
What about the people who can't afford a Viper? Dealerships will probably see a lot of people coming in just out of curiosity.
Well, you're right. Some of them will just want a catalog and just want to talk about the Viper. But you can't look at them as a nuisance. You can't blow them off. They're an opportunity. They may have never set foot before in a Dodge dealership. Some of them may be good candidates for other Dodge sports cars, Stealths and Daytonas. Some of them may be used car candidates. If they have a driver's license, they're an opportunity. But you can't blatantly shift the conversation to these less expensive cars. You need to be subtle and tactful. It's a difficult situation that will vary with the person in the situation, and it calls for experience and selling skills.
Let's talk about what happens once the car arrives.
Well, first, before the customer comes in to pick up his or her Viper, inspect the Viper yourself to be sure it is perfect. It's not to say your vehicle prep people will drop the ball, but it's your customer and you need to make sure that Viper is ready. Otherwise, we'll all look bad. Take time before the customer arrives to familiarize yourself with the Viper's features. You want to know what you're doing when you demonstrate them for the customer. And since this will probably be your first time with the Viper, go over all the controls and their operation before you demonstrate them. Have all the paperwork ready, the title, the registration, the insurance, the plates. Now, I know you're already doing this for your customers, but it's especially important for Viper customers. You don't want to make them wait. When your customer arrives, demonstrate all the features that you examined earlier. Review the warranty coverage. Bring the service manager out and introduce him to the customer so that the customer knows who to speak to when he or she needs service. And so the service department knows that this person is an extremely important customer. That's also a good time to point out that Dodge has set up special parts and technical assistant programs just for Viper. Explain that the corporation will be calling soon to ensure that the customer is happy with his or her purchase. You should also plan on doing the same. The customer will receive in the mail a custom leather valise that contains the owner's manual, a service manual, and a parts catalog.
Marty, you mentioned some special service programs being set up to take care of Viper owners. What can you tell us about those?
Well, nothing's worse than telling friends your $50,000 sports car is sitting in the shop waiting for parts. So the Special Order Service Parts Expediting Group, called SOS, will give their Viper parts top priority. 2 hotlines have been set up to assist technicians in problem solving. One for powertrain issues, the other for general vehicle quality. Those numbers are listed in the Viper Owner's Manual. Finally, in some major repair situations, we're prepared to send a team Viper engineer and technician to provide technical assistance.
What can a dealership do to supplement these efforts?
Well, service departments may also want to set up their own special programs for Viper customers. For example, providing pickup and delivery of the vehicle, or even sending a technician to the customer's house to perform relatively simple maintenance. And customers should always receive a follow-up phone call after any service. There's one more thing, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, Van. Many Viper owners and other car enthusiasts are hypersensitive about their car. They're particular about who's touching it and driving it. Getting grease on the seat of a Viper is a calamity. Not a simple just a second, we'll wipe it off. Trust me, it is a calamity. Greasy hands on the leather steering wheel is also a calamity. all the dealership departments are going to have to become super sensitive to these idiosyncrasies and respect the owner's wishes.
How is the Viper going to affect sales of the other Dodge products, the Caravan, Spirits, Shadows, and so on?
Well, Viper will give you a whole new chance to develop a customer base. Frankly, there's a lot of people who weren't interested in driving a Dodge until now. When your dealership sells a Viper, and when you take special care of that customer, you'll give them something to talk about. Word of mouth is a powerful force, something you could live or die by. If Viper owners tell their circle of friends how well you've taken care of them, you may see more customers. Remember, Viper owners are probably respected by their friends as auto experts. What better endorsement is there for your dealership? If they tell people how your store took care of them when buying their Viper, they may come see you about a Spirit or a Caravan.
Clearly, Viper customers require special treatment and present a unique challenge for Dodge dealers. Yet Viper also represents a superb opportunity to reach out to new markets. But what comes next, Marty? What's the big picture?
Chrysler Corporation and Dodge are undergoing a massive cultural change. It's a cooperative effort between designers, engineers, suppliers, manufacturing, marketing, and salespeople to provide customers with the vehicles and service they want and demand. Viper is only the first product that will embody this new spirit, a spirit that's spreading throughout the entire corporation. The next example of this new culture will be the Dodge Intrepid, and the process and culture that helped make Viper such a success are going to do the same for the Intrepid. Even the new billion-dollar Chrysler Technology Center is really a large-scale application of the Viper's customer-driven development process, one that will continue to help us make the cars and trucks that America wants well into the 21st century.
Thanks, Marty, for joining us here today, and boy, I sure hope I can get a Viper for myself.
Well, so do I.
Well, one look at the Viper is all it takes to realize that great things are on the horizon for Dodge. As an integral member of Team Dodge, reaching that horizon depends on your commitment to satisfy the customer's needs. Thanks for joining us for this special look at the new Dodge Viper RT10. See you on the road, or perhaps on the track.
A brand new shiny red super stock Dodge. And everybody's saying that there's nobody meaner than the little old lady from Pasadena. She drives real fast, she drives real hard. She's the terror of a Colorado boulevard. The little old lady from Pasadena.
At Dodge, things are moving very fast. Aluminum heads, V10s, twin turbos. It's all good old push you back in your seat fun.